You refer to towards the beginning of the Troubles in 1969, living in Belfast. There were there's some people in the audience from the six counties in the north. Could you just briefly describe what happens? What is it like between August 12th and August 17th, 1969, when Catholics demand an end to the discrimination and a start of the civil rights campaign? What happens during this 5-day period?
Well, I was a teenager. I was active politically. I had become involved in housing action agitation in my own community, my own neighbourhood. I had witnessed an event where there was an attempt by a man called Ian Paisley, where he had sought to attack a Sinn Féin election office and take away the Irish national flag. And he threatened that if the RUC didn't remove it, because it was illegal, the Irish national flag was illegal in the north of Ireland at that time. Sinn Féin was illegal at that time. Gramophone recordings of Irish songs were illegal at that time. Newspapers were illegal. Little badges were illegal. The newspaper of the Sinn Féin party was illegal. So I was curious about these events. I was actually going to school at the time. And I went into the government publishing offices and I bought a copy of the Special Powers Act. And the Special Powers Act was the act which gave the state the authority to carry out all of these repressive measures. And it's quite interesting. Vorster of South Africa, he was a Prime Minister of apartheid South Africa, said he would give up all the apartheid regulations for one clause of the Special Powers Act. And those of you who have access to internet should Google it and have a look at it, because, and I paraphrase this, the best clause of it, having give a whole list of things. I mean, you could be whipped. There was a device called the Cat of Nine Tails. You could be. I actually knew the last man to be whipped in Belfast prison. But one of the clauses says anything which isn't covered in the preceding clause, we now give authority to blah 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 blah. So it was rather an ingenious thing. Now all of that boiled up. The civil rights campaigns, I was a part of it, but I was a very junior part of it. Bernadette McCollowsky, John Hume, other leaders were front line and giving leadership. Gerry Fitt, who was also part of all of that. So Ian Paisley organised what were called counter demonstrations to the civil rights rallies and the civil rights marches and so on. And there was a large Orange March in Derry. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Derry's a beautiful place, and it's a walled city. It's probably one of the oldest walled city in the islands. And as happens, I don't want to be given too long an answer, but in many cases, Catholics weren't allowed to live within the walls of the city. So there was a large settlement of people lived in what's called the Bogside. And the walls looked down over the Bogside. So some of the Orange men at this march threw pennies down at the people in the Bogside, and the young people retaliated, and the Battle of the Bogside commenced. And they took on the police. And the police moved in and they barricaded. And it went on for, I don't know how long, but it ended up as Free Derry. It was Free Derry for quite a long time after that. So we on the outside got an appeal from people in Derry to organise demonstrations to try and get the RUC pulled out of Derry. So in my home place, we organised a meeting under the tutelage of the Housing Action Committee, which I was chairperson of, and that was quite tense, but there wasn't any real big difficulties. Later on, the police opened fire, and then the Falls area, the Falls Road, which would be one of the main arterial route in West Belfast, was then attacked by the state forces, the B Specials, the RUC, and some loyalists. And they opened fire, and they killed a number of people, and then homes were burnt out. And there was it was a place I lived in. I still live there, but it's a place I lived in and had very happy time there. But I walked the road the day after the burnings, and it was the old neighbourhood, at least that main stretch of the old neighbourhood, was gone. Whole streets were razed to the ground, and there was the biggest forced movement of a population at that time. Worse things have happened in other parts of the world since, but at that time it was the biggest forced movement of a population since the Second World War.